Over 300 million surgeries are performed worldwide every year. Before each one, an anesthesiologist pushes a drug into your IV, and within seconds, you're gone. Not asleep, unconscious. You can't feel pain, form memories, or respond to stimuli. Your consciousness is switched off like a light. Then, when the surgery is over, they bring you back. They do this every day. And here's the part nobody tells you. Despite 180 years of using anesthesia, we still don't fully understand how it works. We know it works. We don't know why. To understand how revolutionary anesthesia is, you need to understand what surgery was like without it. Before 1846, surgical patients were fully conscious. They were held down by assistants, sometimes strapped to tables. Speed was the primary surgical skill. The best surgeons were the fastest, because every additional second meant more agony. Robert Liston, considered the fastest surgeon in 19th century England, could amputate a leg in under 2.5 minutes. Patients bit down on leather straps. Many died of shock from the pain alone. Surgery was a last resort reserved for life-threatening emergencies because the procedure itself could kill you. On October 16, 1846, at Massachusetts General Hospital, a dentist named William Morton publicly demonstrated ether anesthesia. A patient named Edward Abbott had a tumor removed from his jaw while unconscious, breathing ether vapors through a specially designed inhaler. When he woke up, he reported feeling no pain during the procedure. The surgeon, John Collins Warren, turned to the stunned audience and reportedly said, "Gentlemen, this is no humbug." The news spread worldwide within weeks. The operating theater was later named the Ether Dome, and it still stands at Mass General today. Within a year, ether was being used in hospitals across Europe and America. Surgery was transformed overnight, but nobody could explain why ether made people unconscious. Here's the fundamental problem. To explain how anesthesia switches off consciousness, you need to understand what consciousness is, and we don't. We can measure consciousness. EEG patterns change predictably under anesthesia. We can describe the brain states associated with it. But we have no agreed-upon theory of how neural activity generates subjective experience. Anesthesia doesn't just block pain the way local anesthetics do. General anesthesia eliminates consciousness itself, awareness, self-reflection, the experience of being you. And it does this with wildly different molecules. Ether, chloroform, propofol, sevoflurane, xenon. These are chemically unrelated substances. Yet they all produce unconsciousness. The diversity of molecules that work makes the mystery deeper, not shallower. The first theory, proposed in the late 1800s by Meyer and Overton, noticed a striking correlation. The potency of an anesthetic was directly proportional to its solubility in olive oil. The more easily a substance dissolved in lipids, fats, the less you needed to produce unconsciousness. This suggested that anesthetics work by dissolving into the lipid membranes of neurons, disrupting their structure and altering how ion channels function. The Meyer-Overton correlation held for decades and across hundreds of molecules, but it had problems. Some molecules that are highly lipid-soluble don't produce anesthesia, and the correlation doesn't explain the mechanism. How does disrupting a membrane turn off consciousness? It described the pattern without explaining the cause. The dominant modern theory is that anesthetics bind to specific protein receptors on neurons. Most general anesthetics enhance the activity of GABA-A receptors, the brain's primary inhibitory receptors. GABA is the neurotransmitter that quiets neural activity. When anesthetics amplify GABA signaling, they increase neural inhibition across the brain, suppressing the circuits that generate consciousness. Propofol, barbiturates, and benzodiazepines all work primarily through GABA-A. But this theory doesn't explain everything either. Ketamine doesn't work through GABA. It blocks NMDA receptors, a completely different mechanism, yet still produces unconsciousness. Xenon, a noble gas with virtually no chemical reactivity, also produces anesthesia. If anesthetics worked through one receptor, one theory would suffice. They don't. Recent research suggests that anesthesia may not simply reduce brain activity. It may disrupt the communication between brain regions. Studies using functional MRI and EEG show that under anesthesia, individual brain regions remain active, but the coordinated signaling between them breaks down. The thalamus, which acts as a relay hub connecting sensory input to the cortex, appears to be a critical target. Anesthetics may disconnect the thalamus from the cortex, breaking the integration loop that some theories consider necessary for consciousness. Though other researchers believe anesthetics primarily target deep brain sleep centers. This aligns with integrated information theory, which proposes that consciousness arises from integrated information processing. Disrupt the integration, and consciousness disappears, even if the individual components are still running. The brain isn't turned off, it's fragmented. Here's a detail that demonstrates how much we still don't understand. People with red hair, who carry variants of the MC1R gene, require approximately 20% more anesthetic to achieve the same depth of unconsciousness. They're also more resistant to local anesthetics like lidocaine. Studies have confirmed this repeatedly, but the mechanism isn't fully understood. The MC1R gene is primarily known for regulating pigmentation. Why would a pigmentation gene affect how your brain responds to propofol? One hypothesis. MC1R variants may alter the activity of pain and sedation pathways in the central nervous system through interactions we haven't mapped. If we fully understood anesthesia, a hair color gene wouldn't be a mystery. The most frightening implication of not fully understanding anesthesia, sometimes it fails. Anesthesia awareness, where a patient regains consciousness during surgery but can't move or speak due to muscle relaxants, is spontaneously reported by about 1 in 19,000 patients. Though studies using direct questioning suggest it happens even more frequently. Patients describe hearing conversations, feeling pressure, and in rare cases, experiencing pain, while completely paralyzed. Modern monitoring tools like the BIS, bispectral index, track EEG patterns to estimate depth of anesthesia. But these monitors measure brainwave patterns that correlate with unconsciousness. They don't measure consciousness directly, because we don't know how to. Every anesthetic is in some sense an educated guess that we've gotten very good at making. We've been using anesthesia for almost 2 centuries. We've refined it to remarkable safety. An anesthesiologist can control your consciousness with precision measured in minutes. And yet, at the most fundamental level, we don't know why it works. Solving the mystery of anesthesia might require solving the mystery of consciousness itself, and that remains the hardest problem in all of science.